incident. A scene like that is something that nobody should ever have to see.
Quote, say goodbye to your kids. It's chilling. And those are the alleged words a North Dakota mom said to her husband before she allegedly barricaded herself inside her home and proceeded to kill her children.
We can share that the 5-month-old and the 3-year-old have passed away. The 1-year-old is still being treated at a local hospital.
Miraculously, one of the kids survived, but now the suspect's family and the community are left with a ton of unanswered questions. Most importantly, what was the breaking point for this young mom of 3, leading to such a horrific act of violence? We're on the case.
Kay advised the sergeant that she had placed the bodies of the 3 children on the bed inside the residence, and she believed she was the only one inside the residence when this happened. That sentence does not come from a horror screenplay. It is an official entry in the probable cause affidavit 25 CRO 1734, filed in Burleigh County, North Dakota. The language is flat, procedural, and unshakably precise. 3 children, 1 bed. One mother who would later tell detectives she remembered the knife in her hands but could not remember everything else. Picture the bed, not as furniture, but as an exhibit. A small rectangle of mattress inside a modest home where the front door opens directly onto the living room. A patrol officer stepped through the door on August 6, 2026 at approximately 5:42 p.m. and immediately sees the bedroom. On that bed, 3 children under the age of 4 are motionless. The blood is concentrated around their necks. The officer is looking that turn a child's bed into something closer to an altar. That is the visual that will define every document that follows, and it is the image the system now asks us to examine without turning away. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure subscribe to EvidenceAxis. Because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The official record reveals that 22-year-old Kaylee Hehheart barricaded herself inside that home with her 3 children, a 1-year-old boy, and a 3-year-old girl.
Right into this case and what we know at this point. So this all began last week on Thursday night. It was August 6th. And according to the Mandan police chief, officers were dispatched to a home around 5:42 p.m. That's after they learned that 22-year-old Kaylee Hehheart reportedly locked herself inside the home with her 3 children and said that she was going to kill them. When officers arrived, they initially came in contact with the children's 22-year-old dad and the 43-year-old grandmother. I mean, this was an incredibly young couple. Police say the 2 of them, they were frantic in the front yard saying, quote, she's in the residence.
On arrival, officers heard assault happening inside the home and forced their way in.
When officers arrived, the children's father and grandmother were already in the front yard, frantic, telling police that she was inside and had just said the words, say goodbye to your kids. The first officers heard an assault in progress and forced entry. Inside, they found Hehheart holding a kitchen knife to her own throat, covered in blood from her upper body to her pants, and telling them to kill her. She dropped the blade, then they saw the bed.
Heard it from the police chief. I mean, this is just an awful story, a heavy story that we're following out of North Dakota. That chief saying it was a scene that was something nobody should ever have to see. Walking into a home and witnessing 3 kids, all under the age of 4, horrifically injured, and allegedly they were injured at the hands of their own mom. And those are just a few of the details that police in Mandan, North Dakota have shared as they're trying to piece together an act of violence that you pray you would never have to see as a member of law enforcement, that no one would ever want to see. And this horrific act of violence. Now, here's what the probable cause affidavit says happened next. Quote, a patrol officer entered the residence to find the children's mother, Kaylee Hehheart, holding a knife to her throat. Kaylee was covered in blood across her upper body and pants. Kaylee dropped the knife and ordered officers to kill her. The patrol officer described the knife as a kitchen knife with a longer blade. Now, police say that Hehheart was detained without injury, but the horrific discoveries did not stop there. That he had located 3 children laying motionless on a bed in a bedroom directly off of the living room across from the front door. The children were covered in blood. The patrol officer noted that the blood was mainly concentrated near the neck area of all 3 children. According to police, 2 of the children, 3-year-old Morgan Hehheart and 5-month-old Ava Hehheart, succumbed to their injuries at the hospital, allegedly murdered by their own mom, while a 1-year-old child, 1-year-old, had surgery and survived. Police said they observed injuries on all of the children indicative of their throats being slit. A doctor also informed police that Morgan had a laceration on her wrist, which could have been a defensive wound. Now, this type of crime is unimaginable, especially one where the children's own
3-year-old Morgan Hehheart and 5-month-old Ava Hehheart would later die at the hospital. The 1-year-old survived emergency surgery. The affidavit notes that the 3-year-old had a laceration on her wrist consistent with a defensive one. That detail, a small child raising a hand against a blade, is the point at which clinical language fails completely, and yet the legal system will spend the next year speaking almost exclusively in clinical language.
Mom is accused of being responsible, and you just have to wonder why something like this would happen. How could it happen? The affidavit states that Hehheart was given her Miranda rights at the Mandan Police Department, and she agreed to give an interview. Now, at the time, police said that she was still covered with a large quantity of blood to her torso, her arms, her legs, and her hands. Hey guys, real quick, running a business is tough enough, but this has led to the loss of at least 2 young innocent victims and the serious injury of a third. Now, we have the probable cause affidavit, and it was not easy to read. And it reveals even more details that are so shocking, details that the press conference that aired on KFYR television out of Bismarck, North Dakota did not cover, including what police say was an increasingly toxic dynamic between the suspect in this case and her husband. They are both the parents of these kids, of the victims. And there was allegedly a physical altercation that led up to these murders that we'll talk about. And we're also going to break down where the investigation.
Here is the first hard turn into the parallel narrative, the part of every such case that transforms tragedy into institutional question mark. The husband told detectives that Kaylee had made past comments about killing herself and the children. He also told them he had recently made plans to divorce her, plans that included his own sexual relationships with other women. He said she knew about these relationships and that her comments about harming herself and the kids had escalated. Burleigh County Social Services became involved. Mental health services were alerted. She was committed at some point within the previous 12 to 18 months. And then, after whatever evaluation occurred, she was placed on medication and, in the exact words of the affidavit, cleared to be with the children. There is the phrase you will hear again. They were cleared to be with the children. That single bureaucratic verdict, typed into a record and filed away, now sits across the table from 2 small obituaries. The husband also told police something else that reconfigures the timeline. 2 days before the killings, Kaylee Hehheart purchased a Glock handgun from a store in Bismarck. Text messages between the couple confirmed the purchase. On the day of the murders, according to his statements and video he captured on his phone, she walked through the house carrying the 5-month-old in one arm and the pistol in the other, pointed at the ground, and told him, "Say goodbye to your kids." He managed to wrestle the firearm away, disassemble it, and scatter the pieces throughout the house. That is when she locked him out, retrieved a kitchen knife, and, according to the grandmother's statement, chased both adults out of the residence with the knife before turning back inside to the children.
Kaylee had been on medication and cleared to be with the children, end quote. The husband also told police that Hehheart had bought a firearm from a store in Bismarck, more specifically a Glock brand handgun. And police said that text messages between the couple lead them to believe that the purchase was made just 2 days before the murders. So the husband, to some extent, knowing about these alleged mental health issues she was having, but also aware that she had went and bought a handgun at a store. Now, police believe that the murders in this case were carried out with a kitchen knife inside the home. But this is where the gun becomes another frankly chilling part of this story. Quote, the husband advised that during the incident, Kaylee had been threatening him with a firearm. The husband advised that he had collected video on his cell phone and he was able to show officers the videos. This included a video showing Kaylee carrying a child believed to be 5-month-old Ava with a pistol pointed at her hip, pointed to the ground. The husband told police that Kaylee then said, quote, "Say goodbye to your kids." The husband advised that he was able to get the firearm from Kaylee, disassemble the handgun, and throw the pieces throughout the house. He then said that Kaylee then locked him out of the house. The husband.
So the sequence is now stark. 2 days after buying a handgun, one mother is disarmed, expels the adults, and finds that video sits on a phone as state's evidence. The grandmother's sworn statement corroborates the forced exit. The children never made it out. When a mother buys a Glock 48 hours before slitting her children's throats, the question no longer simply what happened inside that house. The question that reframes this entire story as a national security thriller, because the protection of children is a matter of public safety. Is this what does a system have to see before a threat is considered imminent? Now the moral refrain tightens. After mental health interventions, after social services involvement, after a known history of directed at her own children, Kaylee Hehheart was cleared to be with the children. That phrase is not an accusation, it is a direct quotation from the affidavit sitting inside the public record. It is the institutional sentence that now demands an audit. Detectives read Hehheart her Miranda rights and interviewed her while she was still covered in a large quantity of blood. She told them she remembered placing the children on the bed. She believed their throats had already been cut before she placed them there. She recalled holding the knife when police arrived, but she did not recall everything.
At odoo.com/OTC. Now, this is what Hehheart allegedly told police in that interview. I'm going to read from the affidavit here. Quote, Kaylee advised the sergeant that she had placed the bodies of the 3 children on the bed inside the residence, and she believed she was the only one inside the residence when this happened. Kaylee advised that she believed the children's throats had been cut prior to her placing the kids on the bed. Kaylee further advised that she remembered having the knife in her hands when police arrived, though
that selective memory will now be dissected by forensic psychologists, prosecution experts, and defense attorneys for months. The husband's cell phone video will be scrutinized frame by frame to determine her state of mind.
From the affidavit that the husband has a video of her holding one of the children, holding a firearm in her hand, saying, "Say goodbye to your children." That can go to the knowingly and intentionally component of a murder. It can go to premeditation, that she was thinking clear enough ahead of time to know, and she was making this threat to him that she was going to kill the children. In the interview room, us detectives were asking questions about the medication. This is the one big bite at the apple. The prosecutor's not going to get to ask questions on the stand more than likely than not of this suspect. So the detective has to ask about the medications, ask if they're hearing voices, ask if they're taking their medication as they should.
The firearm purchase records will be entered to establish premeditation, and the entire apparatus of criminal justice will meticulous exactly what happened, after the fact, in that living room directly across from the front door. The probable cause affidavit adds one final piece. Police observed injuries on the husband consistent with his account of wrestling for the gun scratches and bite marks. The grandmother's interview matched the husband's timeline, and Hehheart herself confirmed that she chased both of them out with a knife. So the evidentiary spine is solid even before forensic results return.
Scratched and bit him, and officers observed those injuries. Now, I'll also add that police said the gun was eventually recovered from the home. Now, remember, the children's grandmother was also allegedly on scene during the incident, another witness. Police interviewed her as well. Quote, the grandmother told a detective that while in the residence, Kaylee had chased both her and the children's father out of the residence with a knife. The grandmother stated that this forced both of them out of the residence due to the threat of the knife. During her interview with the sergeant, Kaylee advised that she remembered chasing both of them out of the house with the knife. After interviewing all of the parties involved, officers decided to charge Kaylee Hehheart with 2 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 2 counts of terrorizing with a dangerous weapon, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and a misdemeanor count of domestic violence.
And yet the unanswered question is not about guilt, it is about the gap between warning and catastrophe. The affidavit documents that CPS was aware of the comments. The husband had informed mental health services, there had been a prior commitment, a medication regimen was in place, and then, on the basis of that medication and whatever assessment followed, she was cleared to be with the children.
She allegedly said that she couldn't remember everything. But police also interviewed her husband, who was at the home when everything allegedly took place, and he revealed some very eye-opening details about their relationship and Hehheart's alleged mental health struggles. Quote, the husband advised throughout the past, Kaylee had made comments regarding killing herself as well as their children. He also advised that he had made plans to divorce Kaylee within the past couple of months. These plans included, quote, a separation. This involved the husband engaging in sexual activities with other women. He also advised that Kaylee knew about these relationships and had made comments about killing herself and the children. Burleigh County Social Services became involved after the husband had informed mental health services of these comments. The husband also had made mention to officers that Kaylee had been committed to mental health services in the past. No date was known exactly, but estimated to be within 12 to 18 months prior to the time of the incident. The husband advised that CPS was aware of the comments, but
there it is a second time, cleared to be with the children. The phrase now carries the weight of a full systemic failure. The court docket shows Kaylee Hehheart is charged with 2 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 2 counts of terrorizing with a dangerous weapon, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and 1 count of domestic violence. She faces life prison without parole. Her bond is set at $3 million. A preliminary hearing is scheduled for October 6th, tentatively set for February 1st, 2027.
Based on the murder charges alone, Hehheart faces a maximum sentence of life in prison without parole. So where does the legal process now stand? So Hehheart is currently being held in the Burleigh Morton Detention Center on a $3 million bond. KFYR television was able to get video of her in court. Now, according to Hehheart's case docket, she is due back in court on October 6th.
Everything about the case from this point forward will be measured, adversarial and procedural. Nothing about the case will restore what was lost.
Because sadly, there are so many tragedies out there of like the impact of cases that are truly as disturbing as this one. Hehheart is charged with 2 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, terrorizing with a dangerous weapon, 2 counts, aggravated assault, 3 counts, and then a count of domestic violence. Her next court appearance is in October. What happens now? I mean, she's in jail on a $3 million bond. I'm sure law enforcement doesn't have much more contact with her, but like what happens next, as this case moves forward from the law enforcement side of things?
Well, the detectives are going to do all the things that I mentioned earlier. They're going to be talking to everyone that knows her. They want to be able to try to.
But here is where EvidenceAxis departs from the news cycle. We are not going to narrate the tragedy as a closed loop of horror. We are going to treat the public record as an open wound. Because somewhere inside the records of Burleigh County Social Services, inside the notes of the mental health professionals who evaluated Hehheart, and inside the timeline of that Glock purchase, there is a specific decision point where a threat was classified as managed rather than active. That classification is the difference between 3 living children and a bed that first responders cannot unsee.
Together exactly what went down.
Well, it's big, Chris. I mean, law enforcement is used to going to scenes and being immersed immediately in, a family's worst moments, a crisis. The scenario changes for us in law enforcement when we know that there are children involved. You're thinking about it when you go to the call and when you get there and you find the facts. However, our training is we put it away. We start jumping in to see what can be done. Sadly, I've been, the lead detective on too many of these child murders. But I know firsthand you compartmentalize what you're doing. You try to render aid if it's not too late. You start sorting out things to start building the best criminal case that you can. So the job kicks in, the training kicks in, and sadly,
the moral refrain lands one final time. After everything the system knew, Kaylee Hehheart was cleared to be with the children. That sentence is not an opinion, it is a fact recorded in a sworn document, and facts like that do not simply fade when the press conference ends. So we end where EvidenceAxis always ends, with the documents. The probable cause affidavit in State of North Dakota versus Kaylee Hehheart is publicly available through the North Dakota court system. We are linking it below. Read it in its entirety. After you do, answer this one direct question in the comments. Identify the single moment in the documented timeline. The CPS notification, the mental health clearance, the firearm purchase decision would have prevented this outcome. Not an emotional reaction, a procedural answer, grounded in the record.
Something was going on in their life.
Well, Chris, frankly, I've worked murder where I went to my prosecutor right after the interview and said, hey, this guy needs to be locked up. He's a danger to other people. He killed his father in the one case I'm referring to. But this man has some serious mental health issues, and I don't think he truly understood that he was killing his father. We, myself and my prosecutor, got in front of this issue, and this individual is still incapacitated by his mental health problems. So I'm not unsympathetic to mental health issues. We know there are mental health issues. And there's some people that will make the argument that to kill someone, anybody, you have to be a little out of your mind at the time that you kill them, right? Unless you're truly evil. But you can suffer from mental illness, which is a real thing, a real diagnosis. We're learning more and more about it all the time. But I fall on the side of accountability and justice. If you knew what you're doing, if you're making threats, and this woman, by all accounts, was under a lot of pressure at this time. She had 3 young children. She had one of the children that she killed is under the age of 1. She was going through marital challenges where the husband was leaving her. We know that. So that's a lot of pressure on anyone, especially a 22-year-old young woman. But she's also walking around. She purchased a gun. She's walking around with one of the children in her arms, threatening the husband, saying she's going to kill him. This is before the act. There is a little bit of clarity of thought here, because once he disassembled the gun, she went and sought another weapon. So why I think mental health needs to be, from my perspective, taken into account and considered, obviously so. I think we can't use that as an excuse either. I've sat in the room on too many child and infant autopsies to say, Chris, I've been to hundreds of autopsies. I really don't remember the faces of most of the adult autopsies that I've attended, but I can close my eyes and I can remember every child autopsy I ever attended. This sticks with these first responders. You can compartmentalize these cases while you're working them. You have to. It's a must to do the service for the children that were killed. But they're never going to forget this horrible, horrible day and what they responded to.
Oh, and I just think of
If this is how you want journalism to operate, not on headlines but on hard exhibits, then like this video, share it what an affidavit actually reveals, and subscribe to EvidenceAxis with notifications on. The evidence doesn't stop, neither do we.